All right, so are you ready to dive into something new?
Always up for a deep dive.
Let's talk Teacup.
Oh, yeah, the new horror show.
Yeah, Peacock's got this new horror series,
Right.
Teacup, and
Based on the McCammon book.
yeah, and we've been digging into it.
Stinger.
Yeah, we got interviews with the creator, Ian McCulloch, the cast, tons of reviews.
Yeah.
Even watched the trailer.
Cool.
Yeah.
You know, trying to get a sense of like,
Yeah.
what's it all about without, ruining anything for anybody.
We want to keep this spoiler-free.
Right?
Just kind of help you decide, is this show worth my time? You know?
Exactly. Is it something you want to add to your watch list?
Yeah.
So,
What do you think so far? I mean, what's got you intrigued?
well, the premise itself, it's like instantly you're kind of hooked.
Yeah.
These families are trapped on like this isolated farm in Georgia.
Right.
And there's this like mysterious threat.
Oh, yeah.
It's giving major like pressure cooker vibes, which is perfect for horror, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Like, how are they going to survive?
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is
Yeah.
that McCulloch like intentionally deviated from the book. Like he didn't do a straight adaptation.
Oh, interesting.
He calls it a keyhole epic.
A keyhole epic.
Yeah, it's like he's taking this really big, sprawling story,
Okay.
and he's like focusing it through the smaller lens.
Oh, I see.
Like focusing on a single family's experience
Right.
within this like larger event.
So it's like kind of honing in on a specific part of this whole story.
Exactly. And I think that actually like heightens the mystery and tension.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you're not getting the whole picture right away. You're
Right.
kind of experiencing it through
Yeah.
this like very focused perspective.
Yeah, like we were talking about before, that opening scene with the woman in the woods.
Oh yeah, so creepy.
Like immediately you're like, what is going on?
Right, like where is she going? What's happening?
Right. Is she running from something? Is she looking for something?
And then like the cars won't start and communications are down.
Yeah.
Like is it a natural disaster or is it something more sinister?
Right. We were talking about how that Forbes review mentioned all these questions too.
Yeah, like the reviewer was like totally hooked by those early mysteries.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sets the stage for a really intriguing story.
It does.
And the fact that McCulloch is describing it as like a puzzle box, a family drama, a love story, a mystery, a thriller, all rolled into one.
I know, like how do you even categorize that?
Right. It's like every genre mashed together.
But in a good way, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's ambitious, that's for sure.
It is, but it's like he's creating something totally unique.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that's what's drawing people in,
absolutely. And it's attracting some big names too, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Yvonne Strahovski from The Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Speedman from Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, and Chaske Spencer from Twilight.
Like, that's a pretty impressive cast.
Yeah. And speaking of Scott Speedman,
Yeah.
it's interesting that he's worked with McCulloch before on Yellowstone.
Oh, right.
And that he describes Teacup as like a sci-fi western.
Like, that totally piqued my interest.
Right.
It's like, how do the genres even, like, intersect?
I know, right?
It's like a wild combination.
It makes you wonder what kind of unique vision McCulloch is bringing to the table.
Definitely. And both Strahovski and Spencer have talked about being drawn to the show because of the human drama.
Oh, interesting.
Like, even amidst all the sci-fi and horror elements,
Oh, that's cool.
they were, like, really interested in exploring the characters and their relationships.
Yeah, that's cool. So tell me more about this unsettling mystery that we've been teasing.
Okay.
So indeed, Hal, we know from the trailer that these families are trapped on this farm
Right.
and they're facing some kind of unknown threat.
Like, something is definitely out there.
Yeah.
But we don't know what it is.
And the opening scene with the woman in the woods is already super creepy.
Right.
Like, what's the deal with the cars not starting? Why is communication down?
Yeah, like, is it a natural disaster?
Right.
A government experiment?
Yeah.
Aliens,
Or like something even weirder.
Right, exactly.
Something we haven't even thought of.
Yeah, and that's what McCulloch is so good at.
Yeah.
Like, he creates this atmosphere of suspense
Right.
by revealing just enough to keep you hooked,
Right.
but without giving away the whole game.
Oh, so he's like really playing with us.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like a slow burn.
Okay.
He's letting the tension build gradually
Right, yeah.
rather than just hitting you with a bunch of jump scares.
Oh, I see.
It's like more psychological.
Yeah,
you know?
it's like getting under your skin.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so effective.
Yeah, it's like that feeling of dread.
Yes.
Like you know something bad is coming, but you don't know what or when.
And he's really good at using visuals and sound to create that unease.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about that earlier, like the way he uses light and shadow.
Yeah, like when Arler is hiding in the barn
Oh, yeah.
and we only see these like flashes of movement and light in the darkness.
It's so creepy.
It's like you feel like they're being watched. but you don't know by what.
Right, right.
And the sound design, too.
Yep.
Like the creaking of the farmhouse, those strange animal noises.
Yeah, it's all very unsettling.
It's like he's using every tool at his disposal to keep us on the edge of our seats.
I like that.
Yeah.
And it's not just about what we see, right?
Right.
It's about what we don't see.
Exactly. It's like he's playing a game of hide and seek with the audience.
Oh, I like that.
Teasing us with these glimpses of the unknown.
Right, right.
But never fully revealing his hand.
Okay, so like what's an example of that?
Well, think about that blue circle that McNabb paints around the farmhouse.
Oh, yeah.
It's visually striking, for sure.
Right.
But it also serves as this powerful symbol.
I was wondering about that.
Like, what does it represent?
Yeah, it's like so simple,
Right.
but also so unsettling.
Exactly. Like, is it a physical manifestation of their isolation?
Oh, that's interesting.
A barrier between them and the outside world?
Right.
Or maybe it's a warning, a sign that something dangerous is encroaching on their lives.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
It definitely adds another layer of mystery to the story.
Yeah, it's like it's open to interpretation.
Right, and that's what makes it so intriguing.
Right. And speaking of intriguing,
Yeah.
let's talk about the characters.
Okay.
So we know that Yvonne Strahovski plays Maggie the veterinarian,
Right.
and Scott Speedman is her husband, James.
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell us about them?
Well, from the interviews, we know that their relationship is strained.
Okay.
There's a lot of unspoken tension between them.
Oh, so there are already problems.
Yeah, it's like they're dealing with their own personal demons.
Okay.
Even before this mysterious threat emerges.
So like a crisis on two fronts.
Exact.
One internal, one external.
And that makes their situation even more precarious.
Right, because like, how can they possibly hope to survive this external threat
Right.
if their foundation is already crumbling?
It's like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. And how will this shared trauma impact their relationship?
Yeah.
You know,
That's a good question.
will it bring them closer together?
Right.
Or will it tear them further apart?
It's like a real test of their bond.
Yeah, it's like McCulloch is using this high-stakes situation to explore the complexities of marriage and family.
Right. Under extreme pressure.
Right. And it's not just the adults who are being tested.
Oh, yeah, the kids?
Yeah, we've got Arlo.
Who's the first to see McNabb.
Right, and hear his warnings about the circle.
Yeah.
And then there's Meryl.
Who seems to be more skeptical.
Right.
About what's happening.
Yeah, and it's interesting how the show explores the different ways that children cope with fear and uncertainty.
Right. Like Arlo is clearly terrified.
Yeah.
While Meryl is trying to rationalize what's happening.
Right, and their differing reactions
Yeah.
are bound to create tension within the family.
Absolutely. Like it adds another layer of complexity to the story.
Yeah, and remember that scene where Arlo tries to tell his parents about McNabb's warning?
Oh.
And they just dismiss it as like a child's overactive imagination.
Yeah, like they don't believe him.
Right, and that moment just spoke volumes about the communication breakdowns within the family.
It did. It was like a really powerful scene.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to see how Arlo's fear is just dismissed.
I know, especially since he's trying to warn them about something important.
Right, it makes you wonder if the adults are in denial.
Yeah, like, are they choosing to ignore the danger because it's too scary to face?
Yeah, and it also raises questions about how we protect our children from the harsh realities of the world.
Right, like, are we doing them a disservice by shielding them from the truth?
Yeah, it's like this whole complex issue that the show is exploring.
And I think it's doing a good job of navigating those gray areas.
Yeah, without offering easy answers.
Exactly, it's like, it's making us think.
Right, and that's what good storytelling should do. Right?
Absolutely.
Now, we've talked about the main family,
Okay.
but there's also the wider community.
Right, the other families trapped within this mysterious circle.
Yeah. What can you tell us about them?
Well, we haven't seen much of them yet,
Okay.
but it's clear that they're all grappling with the same fear and uncertainty,
Right.
and their presence adds another layer of intrigue to the story.
Yeah, like how will they react to this shared crisis?
Right, will they band together?
Right.
Or will their individual needs and anxieties tear them apart?
Yeah, it's like the show is setting up a microcosm of society,
Right,
exploring how people behave
right.
when the rules of civilization are suspended.
Exactly. Like, we see glimpses of that in the scene where James confronts his neighbor about stealing supplies.
Oh, yeah, that was so tense.
It was, and it hinted at the potential for conflict
Right.
as resources become scarce and tensions rise.
Right. It makes you wonder, how long can these families maintain a sense of community
Right.
when their survival is at stake?
It's a classic us versus them scenario.
Yeah, but with a sci-fi twist.
Exactly. Like, it's not just about surviving the elements or fighting off wild animals.
Yeah.
It's about surviving each other.
Oh, that's a good point. And that adds a whole new level of psychological horror to the story.
It does. It's like the real monsters might be the people around you.
Oh, I like that.
And it all ties back to that keyhole epic idea we talked about earlier. Even though we're focused on this one family,
Right.
their story is a microcosm of the larger human drama
Right.
unfolding in the wake of this mysterious event.
So it's like their story is a reflection of what's happening to everyone.
Exactly.
Now, we've talked about the show's approach to adaptation, the blend of genres, the character dynamics, and the unsettling atmosphere. But there's one element that we haven't really explored yet.
Okay. What's that?
The social commentary.
Oh, yeah, like the layer beneath the surface.
Yeah, because while Teacup is undeniably entertaining,
Right.
it also seems to be engaging with some deeper themes.
It does. Like, it's making us think about the world we live in.
Right, so it's not just about scaring us.
No, it's about making us think.
Okay, so what kind of social commentary are we seeing in this show?
Well, remember, we're only 2 episodes in.
Right.
So it's still early days.
Yeah.
But there are already hints that the show is exploring some real-world anxieties.
Okay, like what?
We'll take the setting, for example.
Okay.
This isolated rural community cut off from the outside world.
Yeah.
It's like a microcosm of society facing an unknown and potentially catastrophic threat.
Right, and it makes me think about how vulnerable we all are to forces beyond our control, you know?
Like pandemics,
Right.
climate change,
Right.
political instability.
Yeah, all those things that we worry about.
Exactly. And the show's creators aren't shying away from those anxieties.
Oh, interesting.
In fact, they seem to be deliberately amplifying them,
Okay.
using the genre elements to create a visceral experience that resonates with our deepest feels.
Oh, so it's like they're holding a mirror up to our society,
Exactly.
forcing us to confront our own vulnerabilities and anxieties.
And by doing so, they're elevating Teacup from a simple horror show to a thought-provoking commentary
Yeah.
on the state of the world.
Right, it's like they're using horror to make us think.
Exactly. And it's that added layer of meaning that makes Teacup so compelling.
Right. It's not just about the scares. It's about what those scares represent.
It's about our collective anxieties,
Yeah.
our fear of the unknown,
Right.
our struggle to maintain hope in the face of overwhelming odds.
And that's why it's resonating with audiences.
Yeah.
Because it's tapping into something primal, something that speaks to our deepest fears and anxieties about the world we live in.
Exactly.
Now, you mentioned earlier that some critics have found the show a bit generic
Yeah.
so far.
Right?
But I'm starting to wonder if those criticisms might be missing the point.
I agree, because on the surface,
Yeah.
Teacup might seem like a familiar horror story, you know?
Right.
The isolated setting, the mysterious threat, the creepy characters.
Right.
But as we've been discussing, there's clearly more to it than meets the eye.
It's like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
I like that.
It might look like a typical horror show. But underneath that surface, there's a sharp intelligence at work,
Right.
exploring these complex themes and engaging with real-world anxiety.
Exactly.
And that's what makes Teacup so exciting.
Yeah.
It's a show that's both entertaining and thought-provoking,
Right.
and it respects its viewers' intelligence and trusts us to engage with the material on a deeper level.
Absolutely.
So far, we've focused primarily on the show itself,
Okay.
but I think it's time we turn our attention to the creative force behind it all.
Right.
The show's creator, Ian McCulloch.
Okay, let's do it. So we were talking about Ian McCulloch.
Yeah, the mastermind behind Teacup.
Exactly. Like, what's his deal?
Right, what makes him tick?
And how did he end up bringing this, like, super creepy story to life?
Well, I think to understand Teacup, you kind of have to understand McCulloch's approach to storytelling.
Okay, so tell me more about that.
So he's known for this, like, really unique blend of genres.
Right, we talked about that earlier, the whole sci-fi Western horror thing.
Exactly. Like, he doesn't shy away from mixing things up.
It's like he's always pushing the boundaries.
Right. And he's also really interested in, like, exploring the darker side of human nature.
Oh, yeah, like he's not afraid to get into those messy, complicated emotions.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes Teacup so effective.
Okay, so how does that play out in the show specifically?
Well, think about the way he uses the setting.
Okay, the isolated farmhouse, the creepy woods.
Yeah, it's not just a backdrop, you know?
Right, it's like another character.
Exactly. It creates this atmosphere of isolation and dread.
And then there's that blue circle that McNabb paints around the farmhouse.
Oh, yeah, that's so unsettling.
It's like a physical manifestation of their fear and paranoia.
Right. And it's also a really effective visual metaphor.
For what?
Well, I think it represents the way that they're trapped,
Oh, okay.
both physically and emotionally.
Right, like they can't escape what's happening to them.
Exactly. And they're also trapped by their own secrets and anxieties.
It's like a prison of their own making.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that McCulloch is really interested in exploring.
The idea of being trapped.
Yeah, like not just physically trapped, but also trapped by our own fears and limitations.
It's a really powerful theme.
And it's something that he's explored in his other work, too.
Like in Yellowstone.
Yeah, exactly. Like that show is all about people who are trapped by their pasts.
Right, and the choices they've made.
And their sense of duty and
So
loyalty.
they can't escape who they are.
Exactly. And I think we're seeing similar themes play out in Teacup.
So it's like McCulloch is drawing on his own personal experiences and obsessions?
Yeah, I think so. Like he's taking these universal themes of fear, isolation, and the struggle for survival,
Okay.
and he's filtering them through his own unique lens.
And that's what makes Teacup so compelling.
Yeah, because it's both familiar and strange.
Right. It's like we've seen these kinds of stories before,
Yeah,
but McCulloch is doing something new with them.
exactly. And he's doing it with this, like, really confident and assured style.
It's like he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to take risks.
So do you think he's achieved what he set out to do?
I think so, yeah. I mean, he's created a show that's both entertaining and thought-provoking.
And scary as hell.
Yeah, definitely scary, but also, like, really emotionally resonant.
Right. It's not just about the scares, it's about the characters.
Exactly. We care about these people.
We do.
And we're invested in their story.
And that makes the horror so much more effective.
Yeah, because we're not just watching strangers get terrorized.
Right. We're watching people we've come to know and care about.
And that makes the stakes so much higher.
It does, and it makes us want to keep watching.
Exactly, to see what happens next.
See if they'll make it out alive.
So, would you recommend Teacup to our listeners?
Absolutely. I think it's one of the best new horror shows out there.
I agree. It's definitely worth checking out.
And if you're a fan of McCammon's work, I think you'll appreciate how McCulloch has adapted the source material,
Yeah, he's definitely captured the spirit of the book.
while also making it his own.
All right, so now that we've explored McCulloch's vision for Teacup,
Okay.
let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay, where are we going now?
Let's talk about the critical reception to the show.
Oh, yeah, like what are the critics saying?
Because obviously, every show has its fans and its detractors.
Right, so what's the consensus on Teacup?
Okay, so what's the verdict?
Well, overall, the reviews have been pretty positive.
Okay, that's good.
Like, a lot of critics are praising the atmosphere.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that.
Like, how creepy and suspenseful it is.
Yeah, and that slow burn approach.
Right, exactly. Like, they appreciate that McCulloch is taking his time,
Yeah.
building the tension rather than relying on cheap jump scares.
Yeah, it's more about the psychological horror.
Exactly.
The dread.
And a lot of critics have also highlighted the strong performances.
Oh, yeah, the cast is great.
Especially Yvonne Strahovski and Scott Speedman.
Yeah, they have amazing chemistry.
They do. It's like you really believe in their relationship.
Yeah, even though it's clearly strained.
Right. And the kids, too.
Oh, yeah, Arlo and Meryl are fantastic.
It's like they're not just these, like, stereotypical horror movie kids.
Right, they feel like real people.
Yes.
With their own unique personalities and struggles.
And the critics have also pointed out the thought-provoking themes.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Like the social commentary.
Yeah, the way the show explores these real-world anxieties.
Exactly. Like a lot of critics have commented on how timely and relevant the show feels.
Right, it's like it's tapping into this collective sense of unease.
Yeah, like we're all living in this world where it feels like anything could happen.
Right, and the show captures that feeling perfectly.
It does.
So, yeah, overall, it sounds like the critics are pretty impressed with Teacup.
They are, but of course there are always a few dissenting voices.
Okay, so what are the criticisms?
Well, some critics have found the pacing a bit slow.
Okay.
Like they wish things would move a little faster.
Yeah, I can see that.
Especially in the first couple of episodes.
Yeah, it's definitely a slow burn.
It is, and some viewers might not have the patience for that.
Right.
And some critics have also questioned whether the show is actually going anywhere.
Okay.
Like, they like the atmosphere and the characters,
Right.
but they're not sure if there's enough substance to sustain a whole season.
So it's like they're worried that it's all style over substance.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess we'll have to wait and see how the rest of the season plays out.
Right, like maybe McCulloch has some big twists and turns up his sleeve.
Yeah. And maybe the slow pacing is just setting us up for something truly mind-blowing.
It's possible. I mean, he's definitely shown that he's not afraid to take risks.
Right. And even if the show doesn't deliver on all of its promises,
Yeah.
I think it's still a really interesting and well-made piece of horror television.
I agree. Like, it's worth watching for the atmosphere and the performances alone.
Exactly. And for those thought-provoking themes we were talking about.
Right. It's a show that makes you think.
And that's always a good thing.
It is.
So yeah, I think we can safely recommend Teacup to our listeners.
Definitely, especially if they're looking for a horror show that's a little different.
Yeah, something that's more than just jump scares and gore.
Right, something that's intelligent and suspenseful and emotionally resonant.
Exactly. And we'll be sure to keep you updated on how the rest of the season unfolds.
Yeah, stay tuned for more deep dives.
And be sure to let us know what you think of Teacup.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Until next time, happy watching.